The woman took off one shoe and threw it down from 600 meters above the ground. The shoe landed on the dirt with a dull thud, but failed to catch the man's attention. Watching the man walk away, she quickly took off her other shoe and threw it as hard as she could. This time, the shoe slammed against a metal frame with a loud crash and finally got his attention. He walked back to the base of the tower and picked up the climbing shoe that had appeared out of nowhere. Where did this even come from? He wondered. Confused, he stood up and looked around, but never thought to look up. He tossed the shoe aside in disgust and turned to leave, completely unaware that 600 meters above him, two desperate climbers were trapped on the TV tower. As the man walked farther away, the woman quickly reached for the flare gun to fire it, but her best friend stopped her. It was daytime, and the flare would be barely visible. Through binoculars, she spotted the man heading for a camper van in the distance. He was clearly planning to camp there. If they waited until dark to fire the flare, their chances of being rescued would be much higher. Watching the man eat and drink below, the woman and her friend swallowed hard. They'd been trapped since morning with no food or water. All they could do was fight off hunger and wait patiently on top of the tower. When night finally fell, the two women could barely contain their excitement. They quickly fired the flare into the sky. The bright orange flame lit up the night and immediately caught the man's attention. He looked through his binoculars and finally spotted the two women trapped at the top. The women were overjoyed, dancing and waving wildly in relief. But their happiness was short-lived. The man and his companion quickly started up their camper van and drove toward the TV tower. As the vehicle got closer, the women's excitement was beyond words. Then what happened next was beyond their worst nightmare. The man held a crowbar. Instead of opening the gate to the tower, he smashed the window of their car. He then pried open the door and started hot wiring it. Moments later, he stole their car and drove off. The women fell into deep despair. They stood helplessly at the top, hoping the man would have a change of heart and call for help. But they waited all night and no rescue came. They couldn't go on like this. Desperate to save themselves, her friend lowered the safety rope and decided to risk everything to reach the backpack hanging below, the one with water and a drone inside. The woman begged her not to, because the safety rope was only 15 meters long and nowhere near long enough to reach the bag. But her friend insisted on climbing out of the platform and inching down the tower. Soon the rope ran out, but she was still far from the backpack. She bravely leaned sideways, reaching for it, but still couldn't grab it. The woman was terrified and begged her friend to climb back up. But what her friend did next nearly gave her a heart attack. She unclipped her safety harness. Hanging in midair with one hand gripping the rope, she stretched out toward the bag with the other, swinging wildly with no protection. Still unable to reach it, she kicked the tower hard, launched herself into a swing, then let go and landed directly on a huge satellite dish. The woman froze in terror, staring at her friend's back, afraid she'd slip off the dish the next second. Thankfully, her friend steadied herself and successfully grabbed the backpack. She pulled out a water bottle and drank deeply, making the woman above green with envy. But getting the bag was only the first step. The real challenge was climbing back to the rope. Her friend put the bag on, stood up carefully, and stepped onto the dish's frame, trying to move closer. But as soon as she took a step, the frame collapsed slightly and nearly threw her off. She panicked and clung tightly to the tower, afraid to move. After calming down, she carefully reached for the rope, but strong winds at that height kept blowing it back and forth. It was just out of reach. In a panic, she crouched down and pulled a selfie stick out of the backpack. She hooked it onto the bag, reached up, and tried to loop the bag onto the rope to extend its length. The midday sun blazed down on the tower, making them dizzy and lightheaded. But to survive, her friend focused all her energy and tried again and again. Finally, she succeeded. The backpack was securely fastened to the rope, extending it by a long stretch. Her friend squatted down, locked her eyes on the bag, then jumped. Midair, she grabbed the strap and landed safely on the rope. The woman at the top watched in shock at how fearless her friend was. But she quickly snapped back to her senses, grabbed the rope, and pulled with all her strength. Her friend climbed as fast as she could, and soon she was just below the platform, seconds away from safety. But at that moment, disaster struck.